Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar. Oh my gosh, it's Webinar Friday again. And as you guys know, I absolutely love Webinar Friday. And I'm sort of looking here at my camera, and my hair's a mess, and I won't mind if you guys don't mind. I'm actually on the road at the moment. So if things are going a little bit less smooth than they should be, bear with me. I've got my wonderful IT support team in the back that's helping me through everything. But I think, as you guys have realized by now, when it comes to me and PowerPoints and webinar software, I think I'm far better off as a compliance specialist than a PowerPoint user. All right, so without any further ado, a little bit of housekeeping while I just, oh gosh, get my PowerPoints wrong. Guys, I'm going to, as always, I'm going to try my very best for us to have time for Q&As today. If I, for any reason, do not get your question, or if we run out of time and we can't do Q&A, or even if you're sitting there after the webinar, be it this afternoon, the weekend, next week sometime, and you go, shucks, I should have asked Alex this question. Drop the guys at ARCP an email. Their address is there, info@arcp.edu.au, and the guys will forward your email on to me. What I am going to ask is, if you do send an email with a question, please include your mobile number in your email, because sometimes when people send questions through, when I read the question, yes, it's often very easy to just type a response back, but sometimes I read a question and I think to myself, it's probably going to be better and make more sense to you if I just pick up the phone and call you. And of course, if it's, if it gets to that stage, I don't have the time to then go and try and find your mobile number, and going through landline numbers is just a nightmare sometimes. So once again, if you do send a question through to the ARCP team, please include your mobile number. It makes my life so much easier. Hey, good news. Today is the last webinar in the ASQA audit series, and our next webinar also means that we can all take a break from doing these weekly webinars. So our next webinar, I'll be moving on to a different compliance topic. Please have a look at the ARCP webinar page to see what the next topic will be. We'll probably be putting the next topic up Monday week. So yeah, and also keep an eye out in your inbox for the ARCP emails about the webinars. As always, what is ASQA doing at the moment vis-a-vis their audits and their current regulatory activities? Guys, they're still smashing CRICOS providers. So if you are a CRICOS provider, and I know I say this every single week, and I will be until such time as ASQA has a new tact with their audits. If you are a CRICOS provider, you need to absolutely make sure that you are 100% compliant 100% of the time, because they are being absolutely ruthless when it comes to all providers, but especially CRICOS providers. For all RTOs, whether you are CRICOS, whether you are domestic, whether you are enterprise, regardless of your registration status, guys, it is absolutely essential now more than ever before that you have your compliance consultant come in and do your internal audits for you. Because especially if you haven't had a ASQA audit for a while, you need to make sure, or you want to make sure, that you are ASQA audit ready at any one stage. But if you are not, and if you're not 100% sure that you are ASQA audit ready, by the time that you get your ASQA love letter, it's going to be too late to, at that stage, trying to see if what they are requiring you to submit is actually compliant. And guys, like I said, get your external compliance consultant and let them do a full audit for you, and identify now if there are any non-compliances or any areas of concern. Because, and one of the reasons why ASQA is being so, in my opinion, why ASQA is being so merciless with providers is, remember that with the 2025 standards that are now, they've now been in place for almost 12 months. Who can believe time goes by so quickly? But remember that the 2025 RTO standards has a very, very defined requirement of RTOs where it comes to quality assurance. And as I said, I'm convinced that that is why ASQA are they're just smashing RTOs left, right, and center. So don't get caught. If you get caught, it's completely up to you. Or that sounds a bit horrible. If you get caught, of course you have my sympathies and my empathy, but make sure you don't get caught. That's the easiest. Guys, at the end of today, and definitely by about Monday, Tuesday, close of business. I suspect by today, though, you will get a certificate of attendance for this course. Please do not email the ARCP guys or myself or message us via Teams and say, will I get a certificate of attendance? Yes, you will. But it's also, like I said, the guys are issuing it, they will issue it by Monday. But every time that there's an email that comes into ARCP that says, will we get a certificate of attendance? Instead of the guys working on your certificates and getting them ready to be issued to you, they've got to go and respond to that email. So take it as read. You will get your certificate as long as you have obviously registered on your own email address and you're not screen sharing with one of your colleagues. And if you haven't gotten your certificate by about Wednesday, then reach out to the ARCP guys, if you don't mind. Okay, that's housekeeping over and done with. What are we looking at today? So we're looking at rectifications after an ASQA audit. Now, those of you that were here I did a very similar, or I did a webinar in a similar vein about 3-4 weeks ago on what happens if your ASQA audit goes sideways, if it goes really, really badly. So some of the stuff that we're covering off today, excuse me, we did cover in the previous webinar about what happens if your ASQA audit didn't go well. However, if you did attend that webinar and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, it's the same things, it's going to be a waste of my time. It is not, because there are other things that we are covering off today as well. So in today's webinar, we're going to be chatting very briefly about interpreting the ASQA audit findings and reading between the lines what they are actually saying and what they have found and what you are required to do. We're going to be looking at rectification timelines. We're going to be looking at evidentiary submissions, as well as a really good and foolproof way to submit your rectification evidence. And this is incredibly important. We're going to be looking at systematic continuous improvement, which includes obviously a culture of compliance within your RTO. And then lastly, we're also going to be looking at, if you have been smashed in ASQA audit, what your rights are moving forward, because we do have rights as providers under the various acts. So without any further ado, guys, if you take these 3 absolute gold nuggets today, if you take nothing else away from this webinar, there are 3 gold nuggets that you really need and want to take away. And this is nugget number 1. At the end of an ASQA audit, you know, when they have the management meeting and they give you a bit of an overview of how the audit went, your ASQA auditor is going to be identifying areas of non-compliances or concerns. Now, during that management meeting, they're not going to run down and give you the full audit report line by line, because at the time of the management meeting, they haven't actually gone and written the audit report yet. However, we all know as the audit progresses, and if not as the audit progresses, at least by the time that the management meeting happens, we all know, we all have an inkling of whether or not our audit has gone well or whether or not we should be concerned. If at the management meeting, the auditor has got any feedback of concern, I'll say very politely, if they've got any feedback of concern, you need to make notes of that. And what you want to do is you want to start actioning those areas of concern that they have actually mentioned to you or discussed with you in the management meeting. You want to start working on them straight away. And in case I haven't said this enough in my past webinars over the past God knows how many years, it is absolutely essential that your external compliance consultant is with you through your entire audit process. But if for some reason you haven't had a compliance consultant go through the audit process with you, at least have them with you in the management meeting as a bare minimum. Because what your compliance consultant, if they know what they're doing, and unfortunately there's about 350 of them that don't know what they're doing, but if your compliance consultant actually knows what they're doing, as the ASQA auditor is giving you feedback in the management meeting, they'll be able to pick up and read between the lines what the auditor is concerned about. And what you should then do is take one day off, go take a huge deep breath, and then you need to, or you want to start addressing those areas of concerns immediately. Because this is the thing. Remember, your ASQA audit report is going to come through to you anything between 14 business days, and it could take up to a month. Now, from my experience, especially with how ASQA is operating at the moment, the longer it takes for them to get your audit report to you, the more concerned we need to be. Because if you're just flying through the audit with no concerns whatsoever, it's going to take the auditor almost no time to go and write, yep, everything is hunky-dory, we love this RTO. It's when they need to go, or when they found numerous non-compliances, that the report takes them a lot longer to write. However, I'm waffling as always, my apologies. I want to get back to this, and I want to stress this. If at the management meeting, or even during the course of the audit, if you or your compliance consultant has picked up that there are non-compliances, start working on them the day after, or at least, like I said, give yourself a day break after the audit has ended and start working on them immediately. Because, as we're going to see a bit later on, depending on the level of concerns that ASQA has with your RTO's level of compliance, you will be given either 21 days to correct your non-compliances if they're not seriously worried about you, or you might be given less time. So, and so in some instances, we do see RTOs being given 14 days to do the rectifications. The quicker you start with your rectification actions, the more time that you've got. So instead of sitting there and waiting for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks for your audit report, and then when the clock starts ticking, then on your 21 days or your 14 days, if you start working on it as soon as the audit has finished, you're actually buying yourself more time, which you may very well find you're going to need. Oh, that was a mouthful. Guys, understanding your audit outcomes. Bear with me 1 sec. My throat's going to be a bit dry. So, one of the things that we need to remember is the NVR Act and the RTO standards require your RTO to be 100% compliant, 100% of the time. There's no such thing as almost compliant, or there's no such thing as borderline compliant. You are either compliant or you are not. And what is really important is when you get your audit report, the ASQA auditor is not necessarily going to highlight or list every single non-compliance. They will, in all likelihood, give examples of non-compliances. And what's really important to be able to unpack is, how there are some of the outcome standards and the credential policy, etc. How some of them are linked to others, like nowhere in the 2025 standards, as in the 2015 standards, was there any, or did everything just stand alone? If you remember back to 2015 standards, clause 1.1 and 1.2 were interlinked, because 1.1 was amount of training, 1.2 was assuring that your training was suitable to the cohort. The same exists in the 2025 standards. So there are outcomes that are interlinked. And what is so important when you are unpacking your audit report is to be able to identify where the interlinks are. Because once again, your audit report is not necessarily going to identify every single non-compliance. They are expecting you to know that if you're non-compliant in this outcome standard, it automatically triggers a non-compliance in that outcome standard. And if you are not reading between the lines, and if you are not interpreting the reading between the lines correctly, you could find yourself submitting rectification evidence which doesn't address all of your non-compliances. And then the pain just gets worse and worse. So once again, it is absolutely essential that if your audit report isn't clear sailing, get your compliance consultant, let them sit down with you and let them unpack for you exactly what needs to get done. And if you don't have a compliance consultant, or if you've got a really horrid audit report where you've just got so many non-compliances, it might be a case of your compliance consultant may not have the expertise to help you unpack. And in that instance, it is really important for you to get somebody who does sanction management, who understands non-compliances at a far higher level than the average, what I call garden variety compliance consultant. And yes, I know I always say this, but of course your consultant, even if they are a generalist, of course they're going to say, yes, I do this all the time. There's, I think now about 345 compliance consultants, and most of them always go, yes, of course I do this. Yes, of course I do that. But in reality, this is when you need a specialist and not a generalist. It's almost like, you wake up one morning and you are feeling really, really, really crook. You go to your doctor and no, I've got a better example. You wake up with a toothache and you go to the dentist, and the dentist says, oh my gosh, you know what? You need a filling. They drill, your mouth is numb for a few hours. You've got a filling in there. However, if you wouldn't go and see a normal dentist if in fact you need to go and see an orthodontist, because a dentist is a generalist. An orthodontist is somebody who specializes. They are a specialist. And it's exactly the same with compliance consultants. I'm just checking the time. You get generalist compliance consultants who at a general level are probably really good at what they do, but a generalist doesn't specialize in things like that. So that's your audit report. If you've got an audit report that is reading like we don't want it to read, you may just at that point in time want to go and get a specialist in, because as we'll see just now, you only have a few bites of the cherry, and every single time that you need to take another bite of the cherry, it gets a lot more expensive. And guys, also very, very important, if you get with your audit report, if you get a letter that they intend to implement sanctions against your RTO, this is the stage where your generalist compliance consultant is going to be out of their depth. So if you receive a letter of intent, this is the time that you immediately get hold of a specialist. Of course, if your compliance consultant is a specialist as well, he's sitting very sweet. But if they're not, if you get an intent letter, you need to get on the phone to a specialist immediately, because this is serious stuff and you're going to need some serious help. So your rectification timelines, as I said earlier on, you're going to, in some instances, you'll get 21 days for rectifications. More serious rectifications, you'll get 14 days, and those are 14 calendar days. Earlier on, I said 21 business days. My apologies. It's 21 calendar days or 14 calendar days in which to submit your rectified evidence. Guys, I'm so sorry. There's something in the air here. Maybe if I start drinking water, not tea, it will help as well. So taking one step back, in some instances, there may be areas where ASQA goes, you know what, we're not 100% happy with this, but this RTO or the evidence that we're not 100% happy with is close enough that, yes, the RTO needs to rectify it, but we are not that concerned that we actually need them to go and submit the rectified evidence. And in that case, oh, there we go. And in that case, you'll get a direction to go and to do the corrections. Your directive will say you don't have to submit your corrections. You don't have to show ASQA that you've done it, but you have to retain evidence that you did do it. And guys, if you get a rectification without resubmission audit outcome, you will always, I think, have 21 days in which to do it. Now, where so many RTOs come unstuck is they go, yay, this is fantastic. It wasn't that serious. We don't have to do our rectification submission. ASQA isn't going to be breathing down our neck. We'll get to it. And then we'll get to it, and then suddenly we'll get to it becomes, oops, we forgot to do it within the 21 days, because we now so relieved that, yes, ASQA had a few concerns, but it was minor enough that we don't have to resubmit. And we forget to do it within time. And sometimes RTOs forget to do it altogether. And here comes the sting in the tail. With your next ASQA audit, one of the very first things that they are going to ask to see is that your directive to go and do those minor rectifications within 21 calendar days were in fact done within that time frame. And if they weren't, you've just dug a hole for yourself. So it's really important that if you do have non-compliances, and ASQA in their audit report goes, look, it's okay, just do it, keep it on file, and evidence to us later on that you did it within a time frame. As soon as you get that audit report with that directive, what you really should do is fix those non-compliances straight away, because then it's been done within a 21 calendar day time frame. Then you can say, okay, we've done it. Here's our evidence. We're going to put our evidence in our share drive or whatever you use, and then we can go back to business as usual. But don't forget to do it, because as I said, if you don't do it within those 21 calendar days, you are going to get zapped the next time ASQA comes. And it doesn't matter if they don't come for a year or 2 years or 4 years. We've seen ASQA go back to RTOs that got directives to go and rectify without submission 3-4 years down, previously. And come their next audit, their next ASQA audit, and the first thing ASQA asks for is show us that the previous rectifications were done within those 21 business day calendar days. If you do have non-compliances where they do require you to submit your evidence of your corrective evidence, as I said earlier on, if they are really concerned, you may very well only get 14 calendar days to rectify from the time that your audit report comes out to you. Or if you've got other non-compliances, but it's not a kind of a thing of, oh my gosh, we are seriously worried about this RTO. We just normally worried. Our levels of concern are at normal level. Then you'll get 21 calendar days. And guys, remember what I said a few minutes ago, just keeping an eye on the time, that start your rectification as soon as you've had that management meeting, because you'll be so surprised at how quickly those 14 or those 21 days go past. And if you're going to engage a external compliance consultant who is not familiar with your RTO, if you're going to engage them, or even if you go back to your normal, your everyday, your usual compliance consultant, you need to reach out to them the day that you get that audit report, because once again, the 21 calendar days goes by just like this. And every day that you've missed in actually contacting the compliance consultant, be it an external person, be it a specialist, or be it your normal compliance consultant, is time that you are losing, and it's valuable time that you are losing. So you've submitted your rectified evidence within the 14 or the 21 calendar days, and ASQA has gone and they've reviewed your rectification evidence, and they come back and they go, you guys are still non-compliant. We are now going to start getting ugly. In that instance, you do have an option to apply for an internal review. Now, if they do come back, and if your first submission of your rectified evidence is still non-compliant, they are going to come back, and they are going to come back with a letter of intent. with your second audit report of non-compliance. Your letter of intent is in all likelihood also going to have a clause there that they are, or that it's going to mention that part of the intent is going to be to sanction the RTO, and they'll also have a date in which they intend the sanctions to start. At that point in time, you do have the option to go back to ASQA immediately and say, hey, we want you to give us a stay on your decision to sanction us, be it whatever level of sanction. And it's really important that you do that, because 90% of the time, even maybe 95% of the time, ASQA will grant you a stay of the decision. And what that means is that, let's say for argument's sake, they came and they said, yeah, you're still non-compliances, and we intend sanctioning you, or we intend stopping you from enrolling people in a qualification until this has all been sorted out. Remember, an internal review can take 3, 4, 5 months to get sorted out. And if ASQA is successful in stopping you, or they might say, look, we intend in sanctioning you, including your ability to enroll new students. Now, if that sanction goes ahead while the internal review drags out, it means that from the date of that sanction decision, which is usually within 7 to 14 days, it means that your RTO is essentially being choked when it comes to generating new revenue and enrolling new students. So it is absolutely essential that if they have any mention they are considering any sanctions, before you even go and apply for an internal review, your very, very first point is going and applying for a stay of that decision. Now, it isn't always straightforward. And once again, at that point in time, and guys, when you find yourself at any stage of your first rectification evidence was still non-compliant, so when you get your second non-compliant audit report, if you aren't already working with a specialist compliance consultant at that stage, you have to save your own college any further unpleasantness and any further pain. Get in touch with a compliance, get in touch with a specialist, and or maybe even a solicitor. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody by using the big S word, i.e. solicitor. However, if things are going down the drain very, very quickly, or if it looks like things are going down the drain, it is usually a good idea to engage a solicitor that specializes in vet compliance. And that is a really, really important thing. They've got to specialize in vet compliance, because trust me, your commercial contracts lawyer does not know how the vet system operates, or your mate who's a family lawyer or who's an immigration lawyer, they don't know how the vet sector works. It's the same as a medical practitioner. They're not all the same. As I said earlier on, you've got GPs, you've got cardiologists, you've got ear, nose, and throat specialists. So, like any other sector, there are areas of specialization, and the vet sector, legal, or within the vet sector, let me try and rephrase this. From a legal perspective, the vet sector is an absolute unique stream, and you've got to work with somebody who actually specializes within the vet sector. Anyway, so I'm digressing, my apologies. So you've got your second non-compliance report. They've said in their love letter that they're thinking of imposing sanctions. You have gone to your specialist consultant. They've helped you apply for a stay of that decision. And then you also apply for ASQA to do an internal review of their audit findings. And what that essentially means is it gives you another bite of the cherry, because what then happens is you then go and do the other rectifications, the further rectifications of the non-compliances that were addressed in the second unsatisfactory audit report. And you can then say to ASQA, look, when you came through the first time, you found non-compliances. We had our 21 days to our 14 days. We still didn't get it right. However, we're not a bad RTO. We actually know what we're doing. So here we have gone once again, and we now believe that we have fixed all of the non-compliances that you've identified. So take a chill pill. We are going to be okay. And that is what happens in an internal review. Now, an internal review, I think it's not that expensive. I think you're paying $1,000 for an internal review, for the application of an internal review. And then, of course, there's your fees of doing another audit on the rectified evidence that you've presented. One of the things that you can also ask for, and this depends on the level of non-compliances that were identified in the second audit report. And remember, we're now speaking about the audit that was done on the rectified evidence that you presented after your initial audit report. What you can do is, let's say there is a heck of a lot. You can also go to ASQA and you can say to them, hey, you know, there is quite a bit that we need to do within a short period of time. Would you, no, hang on, sorry, I've got my story wrong. If ASQA believes that your non-compliances are not of a massive big risk, they may give you the option of negotiating a return to compliance agreement with them, an RTC. Now, an RTC is only available if ASQA actually mentions that in their communication to you. It isn't something that we can go and apply for, or we can go and ask ASQA if we can have one, because if they were prepared to give you an RTC, it would be in your documentation. Let's say then that we've had the internal review. We've submitted our evidence for the internal review, and ASQA still come back and they still smash us. Our next step is to then apply to the ART, the Administrative Review Tribunal. Remember, they used to be called the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, the AAT. It's now the ART. We can then go to the ART and we can then ask them to literally review the material again. And that is another bite of the cherry, because one of the things about, if you do have to take your matter to any kind of legal fight with ASQA, because the ART obviously is a it's a branch of the legal system. With the ART, the rules, the tribunal rules are that, all things being equal, the tribunal should only look at the evidence in front of them at the time of the application. So what I'm trying to say is that if you do have to go to the ART, that you then have an opportunity of once again going through all of the ASQA audit reports and double checking all of your evidence and getting everything right at that point in time. But guys, I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing what happens at the ART. That's a completely different discussion altogether. And in the ideal world, you don't want to get to the stage that your RTO has to go to the ART or even has to go to the federal court in able to save its registration. In all, what we really want, in all, being very realistic, is if we have to go as far up within the system, we wanted to really that the internal review is the last step that we have to take to save our RTO's registration. If you get to the stage where you need to apply for an internal review or even go further to the ART, please take it as read that at this point in time, you need to work with a specialist. At this point in time, your normal generalist compliance consultant is not the right person to use, because if they specialized in internal reviews, if they specialized in ART matters, if they had the specialist knowledge and expertise that an RTO needs when it comes to rectification for internal review purposes or for ART purposes, your RTO wouldn't be where it was as it is, because they should have gotten the job right in the first instance. 11:35, I've got to hurry up. Guys, within your audit reports, you're going to be given deadlines that need to be met. Like I said earlier on, at first instance, you are going to, if you're lucky and you have compliance non-compliances that aren't a major concern, you'll have your 21 calendar days essential. Do not mess around with that. If you are given 21 days or 14 days to put in a response, i.e., to put in new evidence for it to be reviewed, meet those deadlines. Because if you don't meet the deadlines, you are basically you're just digging yourself a hole once again. But look, there are always instances where it isn't necessarily going to be possible to meet those deadlines. And if you've sat down with your compliance specialist and or your specialist solicitor, and you've realized that there's so much work to be done that you can't possibly meet the 14 or the 21 days, that is the time to go to ASQA and say to them, look, we need an extension of this submission date for these and these and these reasons. And do yourself a favor. Do not make this decision by yourself. So often it's so frustrating. Not so often, but every so often, well, every once in a while, we'll get called in to go and help an RTO with their rectification, and we'll have a look at the amount of work to do, and we'll say to the CEO or to the business owner, look, in all reality, this work cannot be done and cannot be done perfectly so that you don't fail another review within the time frame that they've given us. We need to go and ask for an extension. And sometimes it might be a case of we might suggest to the RTO that we need a 2-week extension or a 3-week extension. We've worked with RTOs where we had suggested to them or strongly suggested to them, which is shorthand for told them they have to, apply for up to 6 weeks extension. And it is so frustrating when the CEO or the business owner sits there and they go, no, we don't want to do it. We don't want to ask for 6 weeks. We are only going to ask for a week. Or, no, we are going to meet ASQA's deadlines come hell or high. And this is why it's frustrating. As a specialist, when I go through the audit report and when I go through the amount of work that needs to get done and the resources that we have that, in order to get everything done, and I look and I go, there is no way, even if everybody dropped everything that they were doing right now, there's no way that we can get all of these non-compliances sorted out and make sure that they are 100% compliant by the ASQA deadline. So where I'm really coming from is, I'll sit down with a CEO, with an RTO owner, and I'll say to them, look, in order for us to do this properly and in order for us to get you across the line, this time that we now have, we are going to need this time. Please go ahead and please ask them for an extension for this period of time. And the CEO sits and they go, oh, no, it's going to look bad for ASQA. It's going to, sort of put a black mark against our name, blah, 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 blah. No, we're going to do it within their timeline or we'll only ask for an extra week. Guys, here's the reality. If you're at this stage where you've got to go and submit your rectification evidence, or if you're at the stage on, be it rectification evidence the first time around or the second time around, going and asking for an extension is not going to put a black mark against your RTO, because at that point in time, ASQA is already sitting there and they're already saying this RTO is non-compliant. They're obviously, having problems running a compliant RTO. And whether you ask for an extra few weeks or whether you meet their deadlines, in their opinion, it's not going to look any worse. But here's the sting in the tail. If your compliance specialist recommends that you do ask, sorry guys, my eyes, that you do ask for an extension because they believe that the work cannot be completed 100% correctly within the time frame that has been given to you by ASQA, and you don't ask for an extension and you do push through and you do try and get everything done in time, and you then do go and submit your corrective actions and you fail audit again, that is you once again digging a really, really deep hole for yourself. So please believe me that if your compliance specialist says to you, we need an extension, listen to them, because they hopefully know what they are talking about. So what does ASQA expect to see with your with your resubmission evidence? They expect things to be 100% corrected. They expect you to have gone and identified the interlinked requirements. You know how I said earlier on that the standards, the outcome standards, etc., there's always some interlinkage. They expect to see that rectified. They also expect you to come and say to them, look, we have identified that we were compliant, or this is the reason we've identified why we were non-compliant in this area. Here is our rectified evidence, and this is what we are going to be doing moving forward, or that we've already started doing, but this is what we're going to be doing moving forward to assure that that non-compliance doesn't reoccur. And that is normally done in corrective action plans. So once again, when your rectification evidence goes in, they expect to see that you've addressed every single thing where there were non-compliances, whether or not they've identified exactly what the non-compliances were, or like I said, they may very well not give you every single non-compliance dotted out, bullet pointed out, because they expect you to know enough about your compliance obligations to be able to do the linkage. They expect your RTO to be able to say, you know what, yes, we've looked at our operations, obviously, after the audit, we've realized that we've got weaknesses in these and these and these areas. We plan on correcting them, as you can see from our action plan. We plan on correcting them in this way or that way or that way. And 9 times out of 10, it also includes systemic improvements, which is also linked to your culture of compliance within your RTO. A credible corrective action plan, as I said, they want to see that you have been able to identify the root causes. They want to see that you have fixed it compliantly, and they want to see how you are going to install more solid culture of compliance within your RTO, so that these things don't keep on happening the whole time. And that might include a stronger focus on more effective governance. It could include an entire cultural change. It normally includes a far more vigorous quality assurance oversight. It more often not includes things like, from now on, our compliance consultant is going to come in and do internal audits for us in these time frames, etc. It could come down to coaching and educating and managing a staff. There's so many things that you could be expected to demonstrate that there is a genuine change in the systemic operations within your RTO, or the systemic problems within your RTO's operations that caused the non-compliances. Guys, I really just want to run through the rest quickly, because I do want to do Q&A as well. One thing that's really important is presenting your rectification evidence. And this is important, the way to present it. Now, 9 times out of 10, you are going to have to upload your stuff to ASQA.net. It's very, very seldom that they'll give you a Dropbox link or a SharePoint link or something like that to upload it to. When you are uploading your rectification evidence, don't go just dump everything into ASQA.net. The best way that you can go and present your rectification evidence is in a very logic, systematic way. And the way that we always do it for our clients when we help them with their rectification is, for argument's sake, let's say that corrective action or non-compliance number 1 was around training resources. And guys, I'm now just putting down examples from the air. Would then go and have a folder in ASQA.net that says, in this folder, that is named XYZ, you are going to find ABC. And we give them all of the evidence presented in a way that they can simply look at a folder and go, yep, if I click there, I'm going to find that. And this is so important because imagine this. Your auditor has already looked at your evidence. Your evidence has already been messy, and I'm saying messy, and I'm pausing there slightly. I'm not meaning to offend anybody, but if it wasn't messy, it would be completely compliant. They've already looked at our stuff and they've already gone, look, there's gaps there, there's messes there, etc., etc. Then we upload evidence, which it's so evident that we've sort of just gone, it's just been random stuff thrown in, or our evidence, sort of uploaded randomly with no system whatsoever. The auditor looks at it and they go, yeah, this RTO really doesn't know what they're doing. So the way that you present your evidence, the way that you upload your evidence to ASQA.net is so important, because we're already sitting to ASQA, as far as ASQA is concerned, they're already sitting there, they're already not liking how we're doing things. And for us to then go in and not have a logical, well-presented, professional way of presenting our evidence at the second or the third bite of the cherry, yeah, it's not gonna work out well for you. We did say earlier on, guys, remember, if in your management meeting or if during the process of your audit, if you've got an inkling or if your compliance consultant does identify that there are going to be areas for concern, start doing the rectification work straight away. Don't wait for that audit report. If your compliance consultant or your compliance specialist knows what they are doing during that management meeting, they're going to be able to read between the lines of what the auditor is saying. And if the lines aren't clear enough, your compliance specialist should know enough to then go and ask the auditor, and have a conversation with the auditor during this meeting and get more clarity on where the concerns lie. But it is absolutely essential. Start the rectification work as soon as you can, because you're buying yourself more time. And at this point in time, time is going to be your friend if you jump on board soon enough, quickly enough, and if you use your time wisely. Because remember that, yes, if you need to go and submit your rectified evidence after your first audit report, yes, you're going to go through a second audit. If you fail that audit, then you have to apply for an internal review. And at that stage, ASQA isn't very fond of you in any case, because you didn't get your non-compliances sorted out after they told you the first time that you've got problems. If your internal review fails, you've then got to go off to the ART. Guys, the ART is a harrowing experience. It is expensive. It is stressful. It is absolutely harrowing for an RTO operator, because you guys don't deal with that every single day. Compliance specialists like myself, we do. So for us, it's a case of we've got a really good idea of what lies ahead, what we can expect, etc. And from somebody who has been through so many RTOs, going to tribunal, because most RTOs come to us when they've had the not so lovely love letter after an internal review. We deal with that area well so often, so we know what lies ahead of you. You don't want to go there. And yes, if at the ART, if we are still unsuccessful, then we probably will have the option to go to the federal court. But wow, you are then looking at serious money, because you're looking at barristers and you're looking at solicitors and you're looking at your compliance specialists. Oh, don't want to go there. So I guess where I'm coming from is that if your initial audit report is non-compliant, you've got the option of presenting rectified evidence. If that isn't compliant, then in all likelihood, you'll have the option of applying for an internal review. If you still don't get things right at the internal review stage, then we go off to the ART. And if things don't go well at the ART, then you've got an option of the federal court. But we don't want to get to the stage we go to the ART or to the federal court. In fact, we don't even want to get to the stage where we have to apply for an internal review. But if we have to apply for an internal review, we want to make sure that we wouldn't have to use the ART or the federal court as a last resort. Guys, that's basically what I've got to share with you. Now, there's a few other things I want to discuss with you. I'm going to, I think, instead of going through this with you, I just want to mention one or two things, because I really want to get onto the Q&As. First of all, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's webinar. If anybody sat there and they sort of were starting to sweat bullets, my apologies. It's not my intention to be a scaremonger, and it is not my intention to cause anybody concern or to scare anybody. However, and what my intention is with today's webinar is to make you guys aware of what the lay of the land looks like and what the processes are if we do fail audit. And also, I guess, to share with you that if you fail audit the first or the second time, it's not the end of the world. However, it's then that we got to start to really get big guns out and flex our muscles. And that sounded bad, but that's the time that we've got to take a look at our strategies and see how we can best stop it from needing to go forward. As I said at the beginning, this is the last installment of the ASQA RTO audit series. With my next webinar, I'm going to be addressing a different part of compliance. So yeah, for those of you that are sick and tired of listening to ASQA audit webinars from me, we've done it. Today's the end. And like I said, we'll be moving on. And I must also say, I've had so many people reach out to me and just tell me how much they're enjoying this this RTO audit series. So thank you so much. I think by now I've probably had, over the last 5 weeks, a few hundred people just reach out and go, we're really enjoying it. And guys, thank you. Guys, industry consultation. So as you guys know, I wrote the Cert for RTO compliance, the Diploma of RTO Compliance Management. Those courses are up for reaccreditation next year. As part of my reaccreditation application, I am going to be doing some industry consultation, because obviously I want to ensure that the courses remain absolutely what RTO compliance practitioners need. If you have got the time, and if you haven't already contacted me and saying, yep, I'll do industry consultation with you, if you do have the time, drop me an email if you don't mind. Future webinar topics, as we said before, they'll be on the ASCP website, and we're going to go to Q&A now. Once again, please remember that, I'm sorry, guys, you've got like 7 minutes, but please remember, if I don't get to your question today, or if you do have questions after the webinar's ended, just email the ARCP guys. Okay, and now I am going to go to the questions. Give me 1 second. I just need to go and find them. Kelly, is there anything that you can do just to make it clear as daylight for me? I'm sort of having a bit of a brain dead. Oh, there we go. I think I've got them. There we go. Just bear with me. Murphy's Law. I told you guys that PowerPoint and Teams and things like that wasn't my strong point. Kelly, can I ask, can you just send me something or the other, just to direct me to, I can see 2 questions, but I know there's been more come in. Can you just send me a bit of a nudge to show me where the rest of them are? In the meantime, Joe, there we go. Kelly, yes, I've got you. Thank you. Give me 1 second. I'm getting there. Okay. Give me a second. Kelly, I'm going to need some help, and I'll try. And there we go. Can you just Hold on a second. Shucks. Um, Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. You're an absolute star. Okay, so first up, um, Anne, you've asked when an auditor is reviewing your evidence, what tips something over from a rectification that you don't have to report to a flat out non-compliance? And that is a brilliant question. So let's say for argument's sake, it's never trainers and assessors, and it's never your assessment tools, because those are really serious non-compliances. Let's say for argument's sake that your record, let's say record keeping. Let's say that your record keeping is good. It's not amazing, but it's good. And it isn't quite 100% good enough to meet the audit expectations. They may go ahead and they may say, you know what, you need to sharpen up what you do here and here and here with your record keeping. Go and update this and go and just store the evidence. Or it might be a policy that isn't absolutely brutally vital. So let's say that it might be, let me think of something. Let's say, for argument's sake, that your student support policy is good, but perhaps your student support policy isn't being implemented 100% as it should be, but they can see that you've got the policy. The policy is being followed to a large degree, but not 100%. They may come back and they may say to you, hey, you know what, you've got implementation problems with your policy. We want you to go and do X, Y, Z, go and improve how your team are implementing the policy, and then come back and go and do that rectification. And when we come and see you next, show us what you've done and show us what the improvements were. So, like I said, it's really things that are in the everyday scope of running an RTO that really are not, I want to say, almost inconsequential. It's things that is not going to be a make or a break where your students are concerned, where your student journey is concerned. It's more a case of, hey, you should be doing this better. And we want you to do it better. So you're going to show us that you are going to improve your operations, and you're going to improve how you govern this, so that when we come next, you can actually show us how you've done your improvements. Does that make sense? I'm just looking. I've had, hold on a second. I'm just busy. I'm so sorry. I'm busy screwing up my screen here. Beautiful. Joe, you've asked, how do we know during audit time if we're going to fail audit? You mentioned that earlier. So, Joe, what I mean by that is, we all know that there's always a time in an audit that the auditor says something, or they've asked you for your initial documentary evidence, and they come back and they're asking for more and more and more. And when they start asking for more and more and more, that is a time that you go, oh, something is not right here. And remember, during the ASQA, during the audit process, that you can absolutely ask questions from your auditor. And it's always good to ask the questions in writing, and always CC your compliance consultant or specialist in it, and tell the ASQA auditor to do the same. And guys, while I'm on that one, please remember, at no one stage during your audit process is the ASQA auditor our friend. They've been so well retrained in the last few years, so well retrained, and they'll come across as all friendly, and they're here to support us and help us, blah, 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 blah. They are not our friend. So, sorry, Joe, to get back to your question of earlier on. If it isn't evident, or if we don't start smelling, if we don't start smelling some smoke during the ASQA audit process, absolutely, either during the management meeting or during the exit meeting, Remember, I said in previous webinars, often the management and the exit meeting are combined as one. Often they are not. But either during the management meeting and or the exit meeting, if we pay attention to what the auditor is saying, we can actually pick up what we are expecting from the audit report. And that is why it's so important to have your compliance consultant or specialist or both with you during the management and or exit meeting. So we can start identifying and start reading between the lines at that point in time and start unpacking at that point in time what we should be expecting in the audit report. I hope that helps. Sally, hi Sally, it's nice to see you again. How you've asked what are the areas that they are really focusing on at the moment. Whew, Sally, how long is a piece of string? As always, they are very, very they unrelenting when it comes to train and assessor credentials. They are unrelenting when it comes to train and assessor professional development, industry consultation. They're also, like always, relentless when it comes to your assessment tools and your assessment methodologies. But I mean, those are things that, they've always been unrelenting about. What is causing RTOs grief at the moment is your governance. Because what happens is, what we're finding they're doing now is when they find non-compliances, just to sort of give us an extra sting in the tail. I've got scorpion. If they find non-compliances, they're always linking it back to ineffective governance. Because when you read the 2025 standards and you unpack the 2025 standards, what governance really means as well is that with effective governance, the RTO should not have any non-compliances. So remember in the old RTO standards, in 2015 RTO standards, I think it was clause 2.2 that said that an RTO must always be compliant with all its with all of the standards, and with all of the clauses. And remember that I think it was 2.2. But remember that if you had any non-compliances of any of the clauses whatsoever, that you were automatically non-compliant with 2.2 as well, because 2.2 was you've got to be 100% compliant 100% of the time. What they've now done is they're now throwing, instead of where they used to go, you failed clause 2.2, they're now going, well, you've got non-compliances, therefore governance is ineffective. And oh my gosh, that's a hard one to try and disprove or to try and respond to in a way that's going to be successful and in a way that's going to be convincing. It's a hard one. Another one that they also, Sally, really focusing on is your internal quality systems. Is your RTO proactive when it comes to ensuring the quality of your services, the quality of how you operate your operation? Just is your RTO really proactive about its requirement to be 100% compliant 100% of the time? Over and above that, as you guys know, they're no longer as prescriptive as what we need in the TASs. So, that's sort of a bit of a relief. And I'm trying to think what else is. There's actually quite a few things that they really, really not nitpicking, but they're really stringent on. But Sally, what I'm going to suggest is, look, I'm with you guys up in Cairns next week for your audit. Let's have a look, because we're so out of time. It's 1:05 already. Let's have a chat about this when I'm up in Cairns with you next week, and we'll take this further. If anybody has got any other questions, I'm sorry, there are quite a few questions I did not get to. I see there's also a few people that have posted their questions anonymously. Guys, no problem with that. Please feel free to contact me directly if you've got a question that you prefer to not have asked you in a public forum. But guys, with that, like I said, if you have any other questions, if I didn't get your question, please email the ARCP team. It's info@arcp.edu.adu. I can try that again. Info at arcp.edu.au. Sorry, ARCP guys. Just email the team and we'll get your questions. It's been lovely, lovely, lovely sharing the last hour with you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a brilliant weekend, and I'll see you guys in at the next webinar. Take care. Bye bye.